spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Grueling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. Check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I would like to welcome into the show my co-host, 49er, Matt Andruscavage.
Mike, how are you tonight?
Oh, I am doing absolutely marvelous. But our topic tonight is the top 10 upsets in sports history. Would you like to start us off with your number 10, or would you want me to start?
I think you started off last time. I'll kick it off tonight.
Okay, I was really wanting to start, but go ahead.
You can start. Why
no,
do you
it's
ask?
too late now. Go ahead. You know I'm hard-headed now. You've hurt my feelings. Just go ahead.
All righty. Well, I'm going to go with the 1996 divisional playoff game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos came in 13-3. They were riding an 11-game home streak and had everything boxed up for home field advantage relatively early in the season. And they sat a lot of people down, and they just, when you look back on it, you pretty much have to say they probably got rusty, and they were able to score 27 points, but their defense just could not stop Jacksonville anyway. Natron Means led the way on the ground. They rushed for over 200 yards as a team. Mark Brunell passed for over 200 yards, had a couple of touchdowns, including the big one to Jimmy Smith in the corner of the end zone. And that has to be probably the biggest upset in Denver Broncos history. If it's not, then it's got to be top two. That Broncos team easily could have challenged Green Bay in '96 for the Super Bowl, and then they beat them a year later. Could have been looking at a threat 3 in a row. But real good Denver team, but Jacksonville was just on one of those magical runs. And maybe it's the catalyst that got Denver over the top the next year.
All right. I don't have it on my list, but I can see why it's there, so I'm not going to argue with you, because actually there's probably about 20 things that could have made the list. My number 10
a lot.
Huh?
Yeah, I said, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. My number 10 would be the 2007 college football game between Appalachian State and the University of Michigan. It's hard to quantify the upset that occurred. I mean, there was over 100,000 fans in the big house in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Most sports books won't even take lines on games between FBS and FCS teams. Michigan was ranked 5th in the country. They were favored by the books that did take it by 37 to 40 points. Supposed to dominate the game. But the upset was so big, Appalachian State beat them 34-32 in the last minute or two of the game. And the upset was so big, it dropped them from number 5 in the country, Michigan, all the way out of the top 25 in the process. So that is my number 10.
That's a pretty big upset. My number 9 is the 2004.
Yeah, just go ahead. You can start everything today. That's fine. I've got no problem with you just taking over and doing whatever you want.
All right, I'm going to.
Ahead. Yeah,
I am going to. My number 9 is the 2004 ALCS between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Now, the regular season, obviously, if you get to the playoffs, there's probably not a large margin of games between, wins and losses between the two teams, because, baseball playoffs are a little different. New York won 101 games, Boston won 98 games. So it's obviously a pretty good match, but when you consider the fact that I don't know of too many series in any sport in a best-of-7 series where you're down 3-0 and you come all the way back, to win the series. It's the only one that I can think of.
It's happened twice in hockey. I know the first time was 1975. I believe
hockey, gotcha.
The Rangers did it. Go ahead. Or not the Rangers, but the Islanders, I think, in 75. Not sure, but I know it did happen in 75 in hockey, and I think there was another time it happened in hockey also.
Okay, that I did not know. So, all right, a couple of times in hockey, but I can't. You figure baseball goes back to the 1800s, and I don't know that that's ever happened in baseball before. I don't remember it ever happening in the NBA.
No, I don't think it's happened before or since. I think hockey is the only sport where teams overcome 0-3. I don't agree with it being on the upset because going into the series, I don't think it would have been considered a huge upset. I think
when you're down 3-0.
Put it like this, if we were doing the top 10 comebacks of all time, which we will someday, it would probably be at the top of that list or in the top half of that list at least. I just don't think it's an upset the Red Sox won. I do believe it's an upset the way the Red Sox won.
Right, that's kind of what I'm referring to. This is a different one. It's not an upset in the true sense of the word. It's more about the way it happened. Because
I understand.
by the time you get to Game 4,
I hated the Yankees, and I still do, by the way.
Yeah, and most people do, and it was especially when you consider the Red Sox hadn't won since 1918 or 1912 or something like that.
1918.
And the curse of Babe Ruth and being down 3-0, you figure every time Mariano Rivera came in, it was over. There was no way anybody thought that could happen, and so it's a different kind of an upset. I can understand your disagreement on it, but that was kind of my reasoning.
Didn't the Red Sox win like games 4 and 5 in extra innings also?
Yeah, it was so improbable. Yeah, if you ever seen 4 Days in October,
I love that. I watched that like 4 times.
That was really good.
And I'd realized that I already watched it 4 times. The other amazing thing about that Red Sox team was they then won 4 games in a row to win the World Series.
Yeah, they never lost another game. They just killed the Cardinals. They won 8 games in a row to just go win the whole thing. After all the things that had happened to that franchise, losing the race in '78 to Bucky Dent, the '86 World Series,
the '75 World Series, Game 7.
Yeah, the '75 World Series, the '67 World Series.
46 was it 46?
Yep, 46 to the Cardinals. I mean, they get a good team. I mean, even 2003.
Yeah, Boston, bottom of the 10th or 11th, somewhere like that. Aaron
Boone
hit the home run.
I mean, I think for a minute there, I was thinking, could we possibly have the Cubs and the Red Sox in 2003? And then boom,
well, you couldn't. So.
Bartman, and then the Red Sox.
Bartman had nothing to do with 2003.
Well, I agree with you. It was just taking the Bartman game. It was a really weird game.
Ball during the beginning.
Exactly. The shortstop didn't.
Come on.
No, I'm not blaming Bartman. It was just it's typically called the Bartman game, and just
I don't call it the Bartman game. I call it the game where the Cubs choked royally again.
That's what happened. Yeah, I don't blame Bartman either. It's one play.
My number 9 would be Super Bowl 42, the Giants over the Patriots. I don't have it higher because I really thought the Giants had a good chance to win the game anyways, and I do have proof of that. Joe Rodriguez is on our show sometimes is a big Giants fan. And I told him when he called bitching and whining to me that they had to play New England. I thought they'd beat him just because of the defensive line. But the Patriots were fresh off the NFL's first 16-0 regular season ever. And they pretty much demoralized and destroyed everybody they played. Highest scoring team in league history at the time, averaging 37 points a game. The Giants, on the other hand, were 10-6 in the regular season, had to win 3 road playoff games in order to reach the Super Bowl, where they were like 12.5, 13-point underdogs. You had Eli Manning's mad scramble, David Tyree's helmet catch. So that one's there for me. I don't think you can keep out of the top 10 an undefeated team in the Super Bowl getting beat. And if you remember, I think a big impetus this for them winning that game was that last regular season game they played in New York. I think they lost it like 38-35 or 35-31.
That's correct, 38-35.
But, I mean, that was an absolutely great game where a lot of other teams would have just laid down and got it because they were already in the playoffs, so they didn't need to win. But I think that had a lot to do with catapulting them to the run that they got on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have it a little higher on my list, just because even though the Giants did end up winning, I think the Patriots. I'll give the Giants credit to the fact that they were built to play with the Patriots. But I think when push came to shove, the Patriots win that game 99 out of 100 times. That Eli should have been sacked, and then the luckiest play in Super Bowl history, the David Tyree catch. Without that, there's no way they win. And when Brady needed to go get it done, he hit Randy Moss in the end zone to go up 14-10. But that isn't to say your prediction was wrong, because it wasn't wrong. But I think it was aided by a lot of luck. But still, the Giants were, because of that defensive line, they were able to play with the Patriots and be a lot more physical and make things a lot harder for them. The Patriots were not able to just go throw up 50 points like they'd been doing all year.
Yeah. All right. Now we're to number 8. Should I just let you do it? Or
go ahead. No, I think I want to let you go this time.
All right. My number 8.
Feeling generous.
Well, see, now you interrupted me. Now you've thrown me off completely. I mean, you're doing this
so
stuff on
easily
purpose.
flustered.
Bully me again.
How did you ever hold a team together?
I don't know. I am here talking to you.
Because one cell phone goes off and you're all completely discombobulated.
You're not supposed to have a cell phone during football. But
exactly. So what if they did? What would you do?
I just wouldn't answer it because that would throw me off.
No, I'm talking about a player, like if they're in a team meeting or something.
Oh, no, nobody would do that. Trust me. Nobody ever did that. Well, one person did one time. All right, now so you're throwing me off even more. My number 8 is the 1985 NCAA championship game where Villanova beat Georgetown 66-64. The Wildcats from Villanova didn't even finish top 20 in the NCAA basketball poll in '85. They finished 3rd in the Big East. They lost the regular season final by 23 games, which was their 10th defeat of the season. They go to the NCAA tournament. They knocked off Dayton, which in and of itself, I think, not 100% sure, doing this off memory, but I think that they were I think they were a 9 seed and Dayton was the 8 seed. But the big thing about beating Dayton in Dayton was they did it in, like I just said, in Dayton. The first round of the tournament, first 2 rounds, I believe, were in Dayton that year. So they beat Dayton in Dayton. Then they beat Michigan in Dayton, which was another upset. They play Maryland, not as much of an upset, but they were the better seed. I think they were a 4 seed. And then they go and they play North Carolina, huge upset there. They go to the semifinals. They upset Memphis State. I think Memphis State, that was a team with Keith Lee. They go to the national championship and play Georgetown. Georgetown was a team that the nation hated Georgetown, a lot of them. But Georgetown was an overwhelming favorite. They were led by Patrick Ewing. They had the nation's best defense. They held opponents to just 39% shooting.
That's correct.
Villanova came out and played completely out of their minds. But the one thing people don't forget, which is why I will have the 83 final a little bit higher upset-wise, is Villanova lost 52-50 in overtime. I think that was the one in Villanova, and they lost a 57-50 game against Georgetown in Georgetown. So, I mean, that's what makes it not quite as big an upset to me there. I mean, Georgetown was 35-3. They'd won 17 straight games. They were being compared to the Kentuckys, the UCLAs, the Cincinnatis, Oklahoma State, San Franciscos, all the teams that had won back-to-back titles. But I think Villanova came out and shot like 72% from the field or 70% from the field.
Yeah, I think they went like 13 of 18.
Yeah, I think they only missed like 1 shot in the second half.
Yeah.
And the thing that's amazing is
turnovers.
Yeah, the thing that is amazing is they only won by 2 points.
Yeah.
So that is my number 8. And it sounds like since you're answering with me, and I know you don't watch much college basketball, it made your list too.
It's my number 8.
Oh, it is? Well, that's perfect.
It is. Yeah, what's really interesting about that, I mean, Patrick Ewing was one of the most dominant centers that ever played in college basketball, no question. The very first lottery pick, outdueled Akeem Olajuwon in, I think, 84 that was? And,
1984, they won 84-75 over Houston.
Right. And, they just basically, they had chances. Georgetown had chances to win that game, but they just, down the stretch, they just kept missing their shots, and Villanova would get the rebound and just make the free throws and just keep building the lead.
If I remember right, though, I believe, didn't Georgetown shoot like 50% in that game?
That's very possible.
I didn't check the stats on it, but if I remember right, I don't really think they shot that bad either. It's just Villanova didn't miss.
Yeah, that's just it. Villanova just would not miss. And it's just one of those games. It happens. You get a team gets hot. One of the things we were talking about is what typically makes a big upset. It's usually not a 7-game series. It's usually a one-and-done situation where an underdog just happens to get really hot and some amazing things happen.
Yeah, because that's what baseball-wise, I came up with very few. I don't have any baseball on this list. Actually, my number 11 was the 1988 World Series. But outside of that,
mine.
I mean, there's no big ones there that really stand out to me that should have made this list. Hard to upset. So usually if you're playing best out of 7, best team will win. Now, there are, in my top 15, I had the NBA series, 94 Denver when they upset Utah. I think it was 8-1. Or was that Seattle?
I don't remember.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Say it again now? Which one is it?
1994, the Denver Nuggets with the Kenda Mutombo.
Oh, yeah, that was, the Nuggets, the Sonics had won over 60 games. That was that was over Seattle it was a best-of-5 series. They won it on Seattle's floor. The famous shot of Dikembe Mutombo laying on the ground screaming.
Yeah, and then they won, or they took Utah, I think, 6 games the next series. So.
No, actually, it was crazier than that. Utah goes up 3-0. They win. Then Denver gets Game 4 in Denver. They go to Utah and win in overtime in the Delta Center. They go back to Denver in Game 6 and blow them out. And then it gets to Game 7, and Utah finally puts them away. But, that would have been really crazy.
All righty. Where are we at now? Number 7? I'll go ahead and start that one, too, since you did back-to-back ones.
I didn't even do my number 8. Oh, yeah, I did. Yep. Yep, I did. Go ahead. You do your number 7.
Fall asleep on me. See, you're the one thrown off. I'm still intact.
I know. I'm totally out of it.
My number 7 would be the 1983 NCAA final where NC State beat Houston. NC State was 17-10 during the regular season. Wouldn't even have made the tournament without winning the ACC tournament. They beat the University of Virginia, who had Ralph Sampson at the time. They were ranked 2nd. They had already beaten NC State twice. NC State gets into the tournament. They get into the tournament. If I remember right, they beat Pepperdine by a couple points. Then they beat UNLV. I believe that game was played at UNLV, too. Or I know it was on the West Coast, but they beat UNLV by a point. The only easy win they had was the Sweet 16 game where they beat Utah by double digits. Then they go to the Final 8, and they upset Virginia and Ralph Sampson again by 2 points. Go to the Final 4, beat NC State, who NC State wasn't supposed to be there either. That was another huge upset because in the Elite 8, NC State had beaten North Carolina, I believe it was. And North Carolina still had Michael Jordan there. He'd have been a sophomore. They were defending champions. But NC State wins that. And the thing that's weird about that is NC State, or not NC State, but Georgia, who upset North Carolina in the Elite 8, the year before Dominic Wilkins graduated, everybody thought the team was going to be down. And actually the team went to the Final 4 after losing Dominic. Then you look on the other side, you had Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma. Larry Mishaw,
Yep.
Clyde Drexler, Alvin Franklin, Reed Geddes, Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Young. The team was absolutely loaded. They pretty much breezed through the tournament. They played a Final Four game against Louisville where I think they dunked the ball on every basket they had, which had everybody thinking there was no way NC State could beat them. But Jim Valvano basically outcoached Guy V. Lewis and made him look like an idiot in the game. I mean, he knew when to hold it. He knew when to push it. They come down at the end. Lorenzo Charles' buzzer beater on Derek Wittenberg's shot from about 35 feet wins the national championship, and that's my number 7.
The Mad Dash by, don't tell me the coach's name. It starts with an M, right?
What, Jim Valvano?
Valvano. That's it. Never mind.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm thinking of Raleigh Massimino.
Oh, okay.
He's the coach of...
Yeah, Villanova in 85.
Yeah.
They both did a Mad Dash, huh?
Yep.
So what's your number 7?
My number 7, I was torn between Super Bowl 36, and I ended up going with the 1969 World Series. Now, I realized the 1969 Mets were a good team. They did win 100 games. They had a really good pitching staff. They had Nolan Ryan on the staff, even though he only went like 6-3. But with Tug McGraw, Tom Seaver, Jerry Koosman, it was a really good pitching staff. The lineup wasn't quite as good, but the thing that really gets me on this is, as we talked during our baseball show about the Orioles from 1966 through probably 1971, and even still through the 70s until the end of the decade, the Orioles team was one of the finest in history, and that 69 team may have been their best. And they won 109 games and only lost 63. And they didn't just, lose, like in 7. They got beat. They just got flat out. They lost 4 games to 1. The Mets just went in there and killed them. And I don't think that was expected at all. I mean, I know that we can look at it now kind of like the way you were talking about with the Giants over the Patriots, but I really think that that was a very big upset. So I felt like I had to make my top 10. I had to get a baseball series in there. I did. The 88 series was similar with the Dodgers.
Well, I think
just
the
their
88
whole
was
run.
even a bigger upset just because
the
Dodgers,
especially
outside of Hershiser and Gibson, Gibson was hurt, didn't really have a whole heck of a lot.
Exactly. They shut the A's completely down. That was probably the A's best team of that 3 or 4 year run. And what was even more incredible about the Dodgers was them beating the 88 Mets. And Joe Rod thinks that team was better than the 86 team.
I think they were too. I think that.
Yeah, I mean they were really strong. Howard Johnson had really come into his own. They seemed to have a lot more power on that team. And
all right. So what you got at number 6?
Number 6. And this was another one that I had to struggled a little bit to figure out exactly, but that was the Buster Douglas upset over Mike Tyson. I believe the odds of Buster Douglas winning that fight were like 42-1. At the time, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit I didn't watch a lot of boxing. I did catch a couple of fights every once in a while. I did not see the Buster Douglas Tyson fight live, but I did see it after the fact, just because it was so famous. Even if you weren't a boxing fan at all, you heard of it, and you knew it was a big deal. And now I don't know how much Buster Douglas did after that, but at the time, to take out a guy like Mike Tyson, that was huge. That was absolutely, it's an upset.
Well, I'll talk about it later. I got it slightly.
You got a little higher, huh?
A little bit higher. I mean, it's one that could actually, I believe, my top 5, any of the 5 could be number 1, but there's no doubt who 1 is, if you know what I mean. My number 6 is Super Bowl III. Like entering Super Bowl III, most sports writers and fans believe the AFL teams were less talented and the NFL clubs were far superior. The Colts were a 13-1 team. They dominated the Cleveland Browns 34-0 in the '68 NFL championship game. The Jets finished the AFL season 11-3, slipped by Oakland in a classic game 27-23 to win the '68 AFL championship. Of course, the game probably best known for Joe Namath, guaranteeing that his team would win the game. It was a boring game if you've ever seen it. They're up 16-0 midway through the fourth quarter when Johnny Unitas comes in, leaves one touchdown drive, but Earl Morrall throws 3 interceptions in the game. Matt Snell played unbelievable. Probably should have been the MVP of the game. Also, Randy Beverly, I think, picked off 2 passes. Jim Turner hit 3 field goals. I think Jim Turner played forever. He played in Super Bowl 12, I believe, for Denver, too, if I remember right.
The kicker?
Namath was 17 for 28, 206 yards, was named the MVP, which got him to the Hall of Fame because the rest of his career was crap other than that game.
In that game, he didn't even throw a touchdown.
Well, it was. Plus, Bob Hope led a pregame ceremony honoring the Apollo astronauts, too. So that's another reason why it made my list. But that's my number 6.
Yeah, we'll talk. I got that a little bit higher, but everything you said is definitely true. The AFL teams were just considered so inferior. They called it Mickey Mouse League. Vince Lombardi came out after Super Bowl I and just said, well, the Kansas City Chiefs are a fine football team, but the AFL teams just don't compare to that of the National Football League. And that was the perception. So for them to do that is as shocking as anything else, almost anything else.
Alrighty. What's your number 5?
I had I did read it wrong. Buster Douglas is supposed to be number 5. I skipped over the '84 Orange Bowl. The '84 Orange Bowl, the Nebraska Cornhuskers with Mike Rozier were averaging like 52 points a game, and they were expected to just roll over Miami. And Miami, I believe, jumped out like 17-0, and Nebraska had to make a comeback, and it came all the way down to the end when they tried a 2-point conversion to win the game, and they were able to stop them. Just the fact that it even came down to that was shocking. Just how good Nebraska was that year, so that's why I picked the '84 Orange Bowl.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite games. That's when I became a University of Miami, Florida fan. I mean, it was great. I think they were 17-point underdogs. The thing I remember about the game is Kosar comes out hot, hitting Eddie Brown and them. They're up 17-0 to start the game. Nebraska comes back. Great football game. I always remember for Tom Osborne going for 2 when a lot of guys would have just kicked the extra point and won the national championship, which made me respect Tom Osborne even more. And also, I think it's the greatest college football game that I ever saw. I mean, you're playing at the Orange Bowl in Miami, a packed house. If you look just 6-7 years before that, they were drawing 20,000 to Miami of Florida games, and they were talking about dropping the football program until Howard Schnellenberger got there. So it's not in my top 10, but I got no problem with it being there.
Yeah, I haven't watched a ton of college just because if I start watching something and I start liking it, I feel like I really got to get into it. I've just never had the time to invest in knowing all 300 colleges and getting totally into it. But I have seen a few college games in their entirety, and this was one of them. Because I remember seeing the highlights when I was a kid. I was like, man, this is crazy. And then I didn't know, when you're a kid and you're learning all about the game, and the pro game is so different than the college game, and especially at the time there was no 2-point conversion in the NFL, so the 2-point conversion was always really cool to me. And the fact that a coach would come out with the national championship on the line and go for 2 to win it, that was really cool.
Bill Belichick would go for 2 to win it.
Right.
He would know what the other team was going to do ahead of time, too, so that would help.
Exactly. Dave Sidursky, if you're listening.
Well, no, because I love Bill Belichick. I don't mind that. I think
I do too.
everything they can to possibly win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the people that whine about it are basically people that cheer for teams that are losers and are basically losers as human beings. That's what I think of people that rip on Belichick and Brady. They're basically just jealous. So.
Yeah, I think for the most part that's true. I mean, I don't like cheating, but to sit and pretend that they're the only team.
Everybody does it. Nobody likes
on.
it, but you got to do it to keep up a lot of times.
Right. Exactly.
My number 5, I'm going to go somewhere where I don't think you expect I'm going.
Gymnastics.
I'm going to Olympics, Greco-Roman wrestling.
All right. I've never seen it, so educate me.
Rulon Gardner defeated Alexander Karelin. I'm not big on the wrestling either. Unless you're getting hit with a table or a chair, and I was 12. I loved it then.
I was going to say, I like
Hulk
that.
Hogan was my hero. Who knew he was a racist. He still would have been my hero because he came out to some really cool music and he ripped his shirt off.
That's right. Who didn't like that?
Yeah, but Karelin entered the super heavyweight Greco-Roman final match. He hadn't lost in 13 years. He was a 3-time defending Olympic gold medalist. And remember, that's not where he did it back-to-back years. I mean, he won the Olympics, over a 12-year period 3 times in a row.
Right.
This is the thing that's amazing about it. I remember watching this match. I don't even look this up. I just know what happened here, so I don't have to read this one or anything. I didn't have to do any research. I just remember it. And this was a guy, the Russian, Karelin, who had not allowed a single point in a decade. I mean, that's like, the New England Patriots playing for 10 years and not giving up a point. I mean, Rulon Gardner, I believe Rulon Gardner, if I remember right, that was the first gold medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling also. And, I mean, it was an unreal match. And I just remember him laying there crying on the canvas at the end of it. And I think he won the match, 1-0. Don't hold me to it because, like I said, I'm not a huge Greco-Roman wrestling fan. But when you got a man, you got the Russian, and we all know the dirty communist, against the American, which would be the good guy. Karelin's the bad guy because this was in 2000. This is before people knew what the world really was. But, I mean, and the thing is, he beats Karelin 1-0 in overtime. So he scores a point. The first person to score a point on this guy in 11 years, and it wins him an Olympic gold medal. That's why Rulon Gardner's at number 5 for me. Plus, he was on The Biggest Loser just a year or two ago. So he's a fat ass now. Maybe he lost some weight, but even if he lost the weight, unless he won and got the surgery, his tits hang to his knees. My
swing
number
low,
4,
sweet chariot.
Yeah, but he's really fat now, so I could outrun him so he can't whip my ass. He gets me in a bear hug going on. My ass is screwed.
You can tell it's late on a Friday night.
Why is that?
We're talking about Roman wrestler, some Roman wrestler.
Greco-Roman wrestling. Rulon Gardner is a freaking American hero, and you're laughing at him. Rulon Gardner would be Rulon Gardner is to Greco-Roman wrestling what George Washington was to our country, and you're making fun of him.
I believe you.
You're not even a good American.
Oh, man.
Jeez. What do you got, a Russian flag in your bathroom or something?
Yes, you.
My number 4 is one you already had. That's why I'm going to go ahead and start it off. Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson, 42-1 underdog, as you said. And the thing that really stands out to that is after that fight, neither one of them were ever really good again. I mean, Tyson won a portion of a title, beat a bunch of bums, and then Evander Holyfield whooped his ass, and then he bit him. Buster Douglas, I think the fight was in February. He did wrestle with Hulk Hogan, I believe, on one of those old Saturday night main events, which was pretty exciting.
Buster Douglas was a guest referee.
Yeah, that's what it was. I remember that.
He was
and I think
because it was. I was a wrestling fan at this point.
All right,
still.
now this is the thing here. You made fun of me for liking actual real wrestling.
Well, you said it before.
You get all excited. You don't even like boxing, but you remember Buster Douglas' ass was a guest referee on Saturday Night Main Event. And let me guess, Mean Gene Okerlund, whatever his name, interviewed him.
I'm sure he did. I don't remember that, but I just remember him punching out Macho Man.
Let's stay on point. All right, let's stay on point. All right. So Then Buster Douglas became a fat ass, and I shouldn't have said that because I wanted him to be on the boxing show, and I even sent him a message, but he didn't respond to me, so yeah, he's a fat ass. But Buster Douglas, then Buster Douglas goes and fights Evander Holyfield. He comes in like 20 pounds over the weight that he was when he beat Mike Tyson. Buster Douglas gets destroyed by Evander Holyfield, and that's all of Buster Douglas. He did beat a guy named Tony La Rosa later on in his career, but then his career was ended when Lou Savarese knocked him out. But what you got at number 4?
Number 4, I've got the 1983 NCAA, the Wolfpack and Houston. The comeback. Yeah, Houston was up by, I think was it like 20? And I just remember I did see most of this game. And
it wasn't, man.
What?
They weren't up by 20. The most they were ever up was 8 early in the second half, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I just remember Houston is spreading the court out. They're just being very lackadaisical. They're passing the ball from one corner of the court to the other, just trying to run the clock out. And NC State they're seeing shot after shot. And then, the 30-footer at the end when the guy catches it and dunks it to win. Quite a comeback. As crazy of a game as I've ever seen.
All righty. What's your number 3? I'll let you do 2 in a row, and then I'll do the last 2 if you want.
All right. My number 3 is Super Bowl III.
Okay.
Because they were 18-point underdogs? Something like that?
Yeah.
And just the fact that Baltimore Colts team really doesn't get the credit that it deserves. 13-1. If they had won the Super Bowl, they would make every top 10 list for greatest NFL teams of all time, just because of how dominant they were that year. Earl Morrall had the season of his career, and they were just stacked top to bottom, and there's no way the Jets should have beat them. But Weeb Eubank totally got the Jets prepared, and I think Eubank totally outcoached Don Shula. And every bounce went their way. They out-hustled them. They just made every big play. You watch that game. Like you said, it's not a very exciting game. But the Jets they slowed the game down. You could tell the Colts were so frustrated. The Jets were totally in their head. And, man, it's as big of an upset as, I don't know, that's pretty good.
All right, we'll get to my number 3, but first we got to hear a word from DraftKings to pay a few bills. So we'll be back after this message.
Your season-long fantasy football lineup is locked in and ready for action, but you don't have to wait till Week 16 to get paid. Put your fantasy skills to the test starting Sunday at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site where you could kick the season off by winning $2 million. It's the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $10 million in prizes are up for grabs, including $2 million for first place and $1 million for second. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitments. It's fantasy football on demand. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want. Then turn your love of football into a life-changing payday. Just pick up your players, pile up the points, and pick up the cash. That's it. You've never experienced football like this. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code SPREAKER to play for free for a shot at $2 million in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Enter SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
And we're back with the top 10 upsets in sports history. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. And as always, my co-host, Matt Andruscavage, is here. His number 3 was Super Bowl III. My number 3 is 2007 NCAA football game where Stanford beat USC 24-23.
Jim Harbaugh over Pete Carroll.
Yeah, but the thing that made this interesting is nobody saw this one coming.
Right.
And that's the other thing. Pete Carroll, when he got to the NFL, and Jim Harbaugh was a Niner, Pete Carroll usually won. But in college, it was a different story. The Trojans basically for the better part of a decade under Pete Carroll, destroyed everybody, making the mere thought of Jim Harbaugh bringing a team that had only won one game the year before into USC and beating USC, who had won 35 consecutive home games. Pretty much nobody thought they had a chance. I mean, the point spread in this college football game was actually 41 points, depending on the source, 39 to 41 points. Like I said, it was Jim Harbaugh's first year. Tavita Pritchard connected with Mark Bradford on a 10-yard touchdown pass on 4th and goal to win the game for Stanford. This is the thing that's a little bit weirder. 4 plays earlier, a sophomore wide receiver named Richard Sherman hauled in a catch for exactly 20 yards on 4th and 20 to sustain the drive.
He was a receiver, and he got converted to a corner.
Yeah, and it was 4th and 20. He caught a pass, got 20 yards. They go down. They score the winning touchdown. That's my number 3.
Yeah, I read about that. I didn't see the game at the time, but I'd seen enough of the Harbaugh Carroll history, coaching duels, and that one always comes up.
All right. What's your number 2?
Number 2 for me is Super Bowl 42. To me, that's the biggest upset in Super Bowl history. The Patriots, people can say what they want about them, but that was a fantastic team. I think they were just ticked off at everybody for the Spygate. Even though I've seen a clip from '92 where the Cowboys are playing the Redskins, and they're giving it the Redskins are giving in all these signals, and John Madden says, now they're giving in a lot of signals, and that's because teams video each other's signals. And so he's talking about it in 1992. It's common practice. And so that's when the Spygate thing came out, because Eric Mangini had just left there, and he had a little bit of a feud with Belichick. Whatever, long story made short, I think Belichick and the Patriots were just, pretty ticked off, and they just ran up the score on everybody, and they were putting up like 49, 50 points almost every week. And, with Randy Moss and Stallworth, and, Brady throws 50 touchdowns. They just nobody was stopping them. And even there were games where they would get slowed down, and it looked like they might lose, like that, I think it was a Baltimore game. And they just stay still. It didn't matter what happened. They found a way to win. And so you get to the Super Bowl. Now, I give the Giants a lot of credit, especially like you talked about that final regular season games. A lot of teams would have just laid down. They didn't need that game. But they showed they could play with the Patriots. They won 3 difficult games on the road, especially that real cold one in Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl. And I remember, I think they're up like 10-7. It's like, well, how are they holding the Patriots to 7 points? But when push came to shove, they drove all the way down the field, and Brady found Moss for a touchdown. But the way Eli Manning was able to just kind of keep his poise, get out of that tackle, make that long throw, and even right after that, he just makes a beautiful throw to Plaxico Burress in the end zone to take the lead. And I just didn't think that it was even ever going to be possible for the Patriots to lose that game, but they did.
Well, I think you're insane to have that at number 2, because I think my number 2, hands down, are the 2 biggest upsets in history.
Well, I know you do.
It is.
You wouldn't have them at number 1 and 2 if you didn't.
Not even close. But Super Bowl 42 doesn't even compare to my number 2, which is 1982 college basketball game where Chaminade University beats the University of Virginia. Virginia was the number 1 team in the country. They were 8-0. They had beaten Georgetown a few weeks before, which was the Battle of the Big Men. It was supposed to be like the 68 game between Elvin Hayes and Al Sender. Chaminade was an NAIA school, which means lowered in Division III, no scholarships. They had lost 2 days before playing Virginia. Chaminade had lost to Wayland Baptist. I don't know how you can get much bigger than that. It took a bunch of Soviets against some Americans to be the only thing that could top it. But, I mean, Chaminade, like I said, that is also the thing that caused the Maui Invitational, which is played every year now. the University of Virginia was actually hoping to schedule, after they'd played Georgetown, Duke, Houston, and Utah all in a row. They were trying to schedule a game against Hawaii so they could give their players a break, spend a few days in Hawaii, play Hawaii. The game fell through. That's how an NAIA school got to play the number one ranked team in the country and then beat the number one ranked team in the country. That's my number 2.
All
now,
right.
how a Super Bowl
bigger than a Super Bowl.
That's a hell of a lot.
Because it's a Super Bowl.
It's an NAIA school. Matt, that's like a high school team beating Virginia. No offense to people that play NAIA basketball, but NAIA basketball, for the most part, is usually a bunch of undersized white guys that are kind of slow but can shoot the ball. And they beat.
I don't know how it beats a Super Bowl, but
because it's a bigger upset. I mean, you've got 2 NFL football teams playing. I mean,
yeah, but
NFL
one is
football
definitely
teams,
superior to the other one.
They were both in the Super Bowl, Matt.
It doesn't matter.
Chaminade went on to not even make the NAIA tournament that year, while Virginia went on to play in the Elite 8.
Well, how did they lose that then? I mean, how did something like that happen? Did they just miss all their shots?
Freaking nature. I mean, they came out, and Ralph Sampson was held to 12 points by the guy by the name of Tony Randolph, who scored 19. And they lost to a college called Wayland Baptist 3 days.
Maybe they just stunk that day.
They just got lucky that day. But to me, that is a lot bigger.
I just don't know if you can put it bigger than a Super Bowl
game that's ever been played. I'm sorry, that's just way bigger to me.
Okay.
So
I think their number 1s are the same.
Lisa didn't drop any Indiana high school basketball in the top 10 because there could have been.
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. There's probably
1954, Milan Indians beating Muncie Central High School.
Hey, you got me there.
It was what the movie Hoosiers was based on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
yep.
Milan was a school with 72 boys, beats Muncie Central, a school with 2,600 boys, to win the Indiana State Basketball Championship, which at the time was bigger than the Super Bowl because there was no Super Bowl.
Yep, that's right. And basketball is big in Indiana as it is anywhere else. Bigger.
It was bigger in Indiana than it was ever anywhere else. And then they went to class basketball and it destroyed it, so now it's not. So, well, we are to number 1, so you will hear what our number 1 picks are after this word from Gridiron Mo.
This is former All-Pro Leon Searcy. I've got a new interactive app called Gridiron Mo, where you get to call the plays, offense or defense, and a live NFL game. You get to interact with other fans, pick the play, pick the call. That's Gridiron Mo.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Mike and Matt on the top 10 upsets in sports history. We're to number 1, which I think that we're both probably going to agree on this. But I'll tell you what, Matt. I looked at a few top 10 lists people had today. I actually found some where they had this as low as number 5.
I see. The thing is I talked to somebody who I actually thought maybe he would, just because of how young he is, there's no way he would have mentioned this game. I'm not a huge hockey fan, and I don't really watch a lot of the Olympics, but I feel like I know enough. I know what I need to know. But if you don't have the 1980 USA over the Soviets, you just don't know sports at all. It is by far the biggest upset.
Well, I mean,
the Soviets beat did they beat the NHL All-Stars that year?
They beat the NHL All-Stars in a Challenge Cup 6-0. They played 9 games against NHL teams, went 5-3-1. And virtually all the top players in North America were Canadians. And, of course, Canada wanted those players. Which those players lost 6-4 in the Olympics. And, I mean, Herb Brooks picked his team late in 79. They go up against the Soviets, who had won I don't know how many Olympics in a row. I know they won.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous.
68, 64. I think they won every Olympics from 64 up through 80. The Americans won in 1960, which was the miracle at Squaw Valley, where they beat the Czechs and the Canadians, I believe, to win it all. But the other thing is the last exhibition game against the Soviets at Madison Square Garden on February 9th, which is the week before the Olympics, the Soviets beat the Americans 10-3. But later, the Soviet coach Viktor Tinkonikov later said that the victory turned out to be a very big problem, causing the Soviets to underestimate the Americans. The Americans weren't even supposed to finish. You had to finish top 2 in your group of, I believe, 6 teams to make it into the medal round. And the Americans were actually down 2-1 to Sweden, who was a huge favorite. The Americans pulled Jim Craig and actually scored the tying goal to make it 2-2 with 27 seconds left in the first game, or none of this happens anyways. They come out the second game and they play a great Czechoslovakian team, which was considered the favorite to come in second to the Soviets, and they just destroyed them 7-3. And then they go out to beat Norway, Romania, West Germany, and I remember watching these games like it was yesterday. I mean, every one of them. And the thing was, the game against Sweden, I don't even think ABC started the show until they were into the third period, and it was a close game. The game against Czechoslovakia.
Did you have to watch these after the fact because it was on?
No, it was in the United States, but the Soviet game was on tape delay because gotcha. I remembered. I think the game played at 5. ABC wanted to move the game to like 7 or 8 o'clock, and the Olympic Committee didn't really care whether Americans got to watch it live or not. So right. I remember I was in like 5th grade. I remember going to school that day, and we actually in art class drew up American flags and everything so we could wave them at the TV while we watched the game. Things were a lot different back then.
Yeah, that's the America that I miss.
Yeah, I mean, and then I remember going home, turning all electronics off in the house, except for the TV my mom and dad were watching in the living room. I stayed in my room, TV out. I was listening to some records, probably a little bit of ABBA or Elvis, a little Super Trooper by ABBA. All young boys love Super Trooper by ABBA. But I liked ABBA, and The Winner Takes It All. The only thing is I couldn't like The Winner Takes It All anymore because in 1981, after Super Bowl 16, that's the video they played to celebrate the 49ers beating.
Oh, that burned.
Then I couldn't like that song as
much. That was it for that song.
So maybe I was just listening to Mamma Mia. You never know. But
maybe we'll put that song at the beginning of your next Bengals show.
Basically, I sat there with my headphones on, ignored everything till 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I think it was 8 o'clock. My dad already knew who won. They did not tell me, or they didn't ruin it for me. So I sat in my room in front of a little 13-inch color TV with my little paper flag chanting USA as my parents were watching Dallas, and every once in a while I would scream and tell me to shut the hell up because they couldn't hear the show. But I remember Eruzione scores the goal. The last 10 minutes of that game after Eruzione scored were the longest in any sporting event I've ever seen. It seemed like it took 3 hours because the Soviets were basically a bunch of grown men that were paid to play against a bunch of college kids.
College kids, yep, exactly.
But go ahead. I went on for a while there, but it's still my favorite sporting event of all time. And I'm not a huge hockey fan. I do like hockey, but not a huge fan. I just love Olympic hockey, and probably just because of that year.
Sure. I mean, I just remember the frenzy of the crowd with in the final minutes. I mean, it's hard. You don't just go and score a goal in hockey like you do in basketball. You'll be able to put 2 points in. It's hard to score a goal, and you could just sense that the longer it went on and the longer, the louder the crowd got, it was just like, oh my God, they could pull this off. And even though I had seen it a few years after the fact, it was still that's a pretty awesome game, especially because a little bit of pride in your country, and it's like, man, this is amazing. And then,
and it's an event that I don't think can ever be duplicated because the Olympics aren't what they used to be. It's professionals against professionals. If the Americans win now, it'll be, oh, yay, we won. Not a big deal. But the one thing people forget is that game didn't win them the gold medal. I mean, the medal round was round robin.
They didn't win the gold medal.
Yeah, they actually, there was a chance that they could have not even medaled if they would have lost to Finland and Sweden beats Russia or Russia beats Sweden, whatever, they would have came in fourth in the medal round and not gotten anything. And I remember that game started, and that game was live. It was 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. We had like 6 inches of snow on the ground. I still remember watching it with my dad and my sister. Sunday morning, 11 o'clock. And the thing is, the U.S. was down 2-1 in the third period, and then runs off 3 goals over the last 15 minutes. And, I mean, I remember I read a book called The Miracle on Ice, and I remember that Herb Brooks, when he went into the locker room after the second intermission, and they're down 2-1, he looked at his players. He looked at them and he said, "If you lose this game, you'll take it to your effing graves." And then he turned and walked out. They come out, they scored 3 straight goals, win the game 4-2. I remember it was exciting waiting all day because the Russians played Sweden in the other game before they got their medals. I remember I was like 11 or 12 years old. I'm outside playing in the snow, but I'd run in like every 30 minutes to see if the Russian-Sweden game was over, to see if we were getting our medals yet. And then you see the guys go up on there, and they're all together. I mean, it was something that can never be done again in this country because nobody really has any pride anymore anyways.
Exactly. And then one of the best sports calls in history is Al Michaels. Do you believe in miracles? Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's just one of those things that it was just a great cherry on the sundae.
Yeah, I got one. Since you're younger than me and didn't see it live, what did he say at the end of the Finland game?
Oh, I don't know. I never saw that. I know they won. I know they won it.
The impossible dream has come true.
Okay, I've heard that, but I didn't know that had to do with the Finland
and the
game.
thing is, if you look at these guys that played on this team, most of them didn't play on the NHL or play in the NHL even. I mean, Neil Broad played 1 year. Ken Morrow was a really good player. Won a Stanley Cup with I think it was the Islanders. Mike Ramsey was a really good player. Dave Christian was.
Ramsey scored one of those, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored at some point there. Jack O'Callahan. Most of these guys played in the NHL, but most of them weren't superstars. And the thing is this, the 2 guys that most people remember are Ruzioni and Craig. Craig only played in 30 NHL games over a 5-year period. Team captain Mike Ruzioni, I don't think, played at any high-level ice hockey after the 80 Olympics. I mean, and that was the team captain and the star. But you know what? If you look at it, there's nothing he could have done in the NHL that could have topped that anyways.
Right.
You had Herb Brooks. The thing was this. Herb Brooks and Craig Patrick were the guys that put the teams together. Patrick was Brooks' assistant coach and assistant GM. He went on to both manage and coach the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. As a result of that, I mean, he was a lot of the reason why the Penguins won 2 Stanley Cups while he was the GM. He's enshrined in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He also served as the GM to Brooks on the 2002 Olympic hockey team, which won the silver medal in Canada. I think they lost to Gretzky and those dastardly Canadians. I don't know why I said that, but I heard dastardly once on a Hogan's Hero episode, and it sounded pretty cool.
Hogan's Heroes, all right.
Well, Hogan's Heroes was a good show.
That was a great show.
And this is another thing people didn't realize. Herb Brooks actually coached in the 1988 Olympics. He coached the team from France. Bet you didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
Now I do. And as they said in a cartoon I watched in the 80s, G.I. Joe, now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
I've never heard that before, but I didn't watch cartoons. I was pretty much an adult from the time I stuck my head out for the first time.
Yeah, I was 7 when I was 7 when I first saw G.I. Joe.
Hey, we'll wrap this up in a minute. We got to go catch another word from our sponsor, so check out Gridiron Mo. Hey, everybody, go check out a brand-new football app called Gridiron Mo. It's an app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all others around the country have also called. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo app at www.gridironmo.com. And we're back with Mike and Matt talking the top 10 upsets in sports history. Both of us had number 1, the U.S. Olympic hockey team against the Soviet Union. Did you have any others you wanted to bring up off the top of your head that almost made your list?
The Super Bowl 36, I remember I really liked that Rams team that year. I liked the 99 Rams, and I thought the 2000 Rams were also very good, except they just had a really bad defense that year. And they come back in 01. They go get Aeneas Williams. They draft Tommy Powley, who was pretty good at the time. And they just seemed to me like they were the best all-around team in the league. Marshall Faulk was still really good. Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Brady Show on Turf. Kurt Warner was another league MVP. And the Patriots, I mean, who would have thought they even would go to the Super Bowl? I mean, Tom Brady he wasn't Tom Brady yet. Drew Bledsoe had gotten hurt.
He was. We just didn't know it yet.
Well, yeah, but he hadn't done anything, and I mean, I thought for sure the Raiders were going to win, and I still don't agree with that call on the tuck rule, but whatever.
It was the proper call for what the rules were at the time.
I suppose. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a fumble, but whatever.
Well, it was. That was the rule at the time. I saw it called in a couple other games too. It's still a stupid rule, I agree, but it was.
Yeah, it's just it's just one of those things where you look at it.
And the Patriots like to play by the rules, so they're not going to do anything that would be against the rules.
I mean, granted though, that was probably payback for Raider fans can't complain because of 1976, but still.
Oh yeah, Raider fans can complain. I've heard it a lot.
But you look at that team in 01. They had a good defense. They definitely had a good defense. They were well coached. Brady didn't make a lot of mistakes. On offense, I mean, Antoine Smith, I mean, he was okay, but they didn't have a lot of guys. But what they did have, they had a lot of heart, and they just. I remember when they didn't even bother with player intros. They all just came out as a team during the Super Bowl.
Well, and since then, everybody does that, which really pisses me off because my favorite part of the Super Bowl a lot of times is just the player introductions.
Oh, I know. I love watching the old Super Bowls when they had the player intros.
Yeah, especially when it's your own team in it.
Yep.
Especially when that's the highlight of those games for you. My honorable mention would be the 1979 AFC Divisional Playoff, where Houston upset San Diego, which if they were full teams wouldn't be that big a deal. But the week before, Houston played against Denver in one of the most physical, violent football games you'll ever see. They won in the Astrodome 10-7, but they lost Kenny Burroughs, their number 1 wide receiver. They lose their starting quarterback, Dan Pastorini, who was a guest on the show a month or so back. Great guest. Gifford Nielsen replaced him. You had Rob Carpenter replace Earl Campbell, who was hurt. So you were missing basically your 3 studs on offense. You come out, and Vernon Perry intercepts 4 passes, blocks a kick, returns at 57 yards. Rob Carpenter, Pastorini, if you remember, told us actually played that game on a broken foot, ran for 126 yards. And
that was really cool listening to tell stories of that game.
Yeah, and upset Dan Fouts and the San Diego Chargers. And absolute great game. What was the final on that, like 17-14?
17-14. I was going to say 24-21, but it was 17-14.
Yeah, so that would be my honorable mention game.
Yeah, that definitely belongs too.
Also,
I mean, Vernon Perry played the best game a defensive player's ever played. Yeah,
and really, the one upset that's missing here maybe should have to be number 1 just because of what happened. Do you know how? Did you know how sports upsets were called, or why they were called upsets?
No.
Okay. I know this because I actually used to read a lot when I was little because there wasn't a lot of TV channels when I was little. But I read a biography of Man of War. Man of War was an undefeated horse nobody ever beat, or no horse ever beat. And the one horse that beat him, the name of the horse that beat him was Upset. That's why they started calling sports upsets.
I didn't know that.
There you go. I'm a fountain of useless information. But as Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story.
The rest of the story, yeah.
But do you have any final last words?
That's for my getting executed?
Maybe. We'll see. I mean,
yeah, we'll
if
see.
you consider watching your team get beat 30-7 by Adrian Peterson the first game of the year at home, yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm not saying they're going to win by a lot. If they do win, I think that'll be a close game. But, yeah, I mean, the odds are, it was really cool to see football
real
yesterday.
Quick, before I forget this, anybody that's listening to this that wants to be on the NFL Pick'em Show with myself, Matt, Leon Searcy, if you go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page, like the page, send us a message telling us you want to be a guest and pick the games against us. We're going to have guest pickers every week through the Super Bowl, basically. So if you want to be on the show, you can check us out there. Or you can send a message to Matt at his Twitter handle, which is?
At MTAScavage.
Or you can send it to me, which would be at RiverMonster11. Or you can send it to Leon Searcy at Leon Searcy. So
Leon Searcy 72.
Leon Searcy 72. So if you want to be on one of the shows and pick the games with myself, Leon Searcy, and, of course, former All-Pro offensive tackle, Matt Andruscavage, then just send us a message.
Did you forget to take something there?
No. My EHT by Nerium? No, I take it all the time. That's how I remembered to make a little joke there. I just figured I'd make you sound like you were a former. You got to admit, you
former All-Pro offensive tackle.
You like the sound of it, though, didn't you?
It does sound cool.
Yeah. I mean, how big are you? Like 6'4", 320? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Those were my playing days.
You shrunk since.
Yeah, now I'm only 5'10".
But, well, I believe we're done for tonight. Remember, you can check us out at www.thegruelingtruth.com. You can check us out at ngscsports.com. Make sure to go check out the Facebook page. Check us out on Twitter. But for Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, and we'll catch you the next time. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
I just fucked that up, didn't I?
You didn't say where the legends speak. I
know.
Hit the floor.
I don't know why I did.
Say it again. Do it again.
I know. So where do I start up from here?
Well, you said just say on behalf of...
on behalf of Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. There you go. That was much better, wasn't
it? Something just didn't seem right.
I know. I don't know why the hell I forgot that. And I have been taking
late. It's late.
But I don't know. You messing with us tonight, or are you going to bed?
I'm probably going to bed, but you want me? You didn't want to put this up tonight, anyways, right?
Well, we could have, because it's going to take me 2-3 days to post it across everything. Anyway.
I'll get it up in the morning.
Yeah, throw it up in the morning, text me, and I don't think I got anything to do in the morning now. I was supposed to have a quarterback to work out tomorrow, but it's been raining all night here. So I'm going to use the excuse that it's slick. I'm going to risk getting hurt when I really just don't want to do it, but the rain gave me an out. But hopefully it does. So if you throw it up there by like whatever in the morning, just text me and I'll get it all over the place.
Sounds good.
All righty.
We'll talk to you later.
Yep. See ya. Thanks.